Beginning in October 2014, Washington will start the gradual transition of all currently licensed drivers from a 5-year driver license renewal cycle to a 6-year driver license renewal cycle. This transition to a 6-year term was authorized in 2012 by Washington State Senate Bill 6150. In addition to extending the license renewal cycle by 1 year, SB 6150 established a facial recognition matching system for driver's licenses and ID cards. SB 6150 also increased fees for certain licenses, ID cards, instruction permits, original license exams, and DUI hearings. Most of the law has been implemented, but the transition of the state's 5.5 million currently licensed drivers to 6-year license terms will take place gradually over the next 5 fiscal years. A fiscal year is the period of time between July 1st of one year through June 30th of the next year. During this 5-year span of time between the start of fiscal year 2015 and the end of fiscal year 2019, all new drivers and most drivers seeking a renewal will be issued licenses with 6-year terms. During each of those 5 fiscal years, however, a number approximately equal to about 20% of the state's currently licensed drivers will be randomly selected to receive license renewals of less than 6 years. These less than 6-year licenses will expire during fiscal year 2020, and depending on the year they were issued, will be valid for 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, or 1 year, in order to equalize and lower renewal volumes in the future. Here are some important details. Drivers getting their first license in Washington have been issued 6-year licenses since February 2014 and are not included in the gradual transition. This includes licensed drivers who are transferring from other states and new drivers who recently passed their required training and testing. Drivers with hazardous material endorsed commercial driver licenses, or CDLs, are not included in the gradual transition. This is due to the Patriot Act's 5-year limit on the federal threat assessment that is required in order to receive a state-issued hazmat endorsement. Washington residents purchasing ID cards are not included in the gradual transition and have been issued 6-year terms since February 2014. Finally, all annual fees for licenses will remain the same at $9 per year for non-commercial licenses and ID cards, $17 per year for CDLs, and $5 per year for motorcycle endorsements. First-time motorcycle endorsements are just $2 per year. Purchasing an enhanced ID or driver's license will cost an additional $3 per year. While these yearly fees will remain the same, drivers being issued a 6-year license are required to pay for all 6 years. Drivers who are issued less than 6-year licenses will only be required to pay for the term lengths they are issued. To help you better understand why 6-year license terms are being phased in over a 5-year period, let's look at our current situation and what will happen during and after the transition. Our current renewal cycle is marred by significant swings in annual renewal volume. The current 5-year renewal cycle has annual volumes ranging from a high of about 896,000 to a low of about 814,000. That's a 10% difference from high to low years. It's difficult to manage resources and maintain the highest quality customer service with significant swings in annual renewal volume. If these swings are not adjusted, this cycle will repeat itself and become more pronounced in the future. By implementing a well-planned and gradual transition, our goal is to spread 5 years of unequal renewal volumes into 6 years of roughly equal and lower renewal volumes. The challenge is this: how do we pour 5 different size buckets into 6 smaller and equal size buckets? The answer? Through careful planning. Beginning in the first quarter of fiscal year 2015, Washington's driver license issuance system will start to assign less than 6-year driver license terms to randomly selected customers equal to approximately 20% of the year's forecasted renewal volume. These licenses will start to be issued in October 2014 and expire in fiscal year 2020. About 80% of drivers seeking license renewals during that first year of the transition will receive full 6-year renewal terms that expire in 2021. This gradual transition to 6-year license terms will continue in fiscal year 2016, when another 20% of drivers seeking renewal will be randomly selected to receive a 4-year license term that must also be renewed during fiscal year 2020. A randomly selected 20% of drivers seeking renewal will be issued 3-year terms in fiscal year 2017, 2-year terms in fiscal year 2018, and a 1-year term in fiscal year 2019, almost all with 2020 as the target expiration year. Because about 80% of license renewals during the transition period will receive full 6-year renewal terms, the number of annual renewals between fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2027 will be approximately 20% lower than they otherwise would have been had the state remained with 5-year driver license terms. In addition, because approximately 20% of license renewals during each year of the transition period will expire in 2020, what would have been a year with limited renewals is replaced with a renewal volume forecasted to be slightly lower, but roughly equal to what annual renewal volumes will be during the following 5 years. After the gradual transition period is complete during the second half of fiscal year 2020, all personal driver licenses and most CDLs will be issued with 6-year terms, unless the driver has other restrictions. To make sure there is equal distribution of license renewals across the new 6-year renewal cycle, customers will not be able to choose the length of their license terms, and the random license issuance system cannot be overridden. What happens if we don't go through a gradual transition and instead had simply implemented the new license terms beginning in fiscal year 2014? As the chart shows, the swings would be even worse. We would have 1 year with limited renewal activity beginning in fiscal year 2020, followed by 5 years of the same unequal cycle. This wildly swinging cycle would continue to grow and repeat itself every 6 years, which is exactly what we want to avoid. So let's get to the result. What will things look like when we finish the gradual transition in fiscal year 2020? In short, the answer is just what our goal was, a roughly equal and lower annual renewal volume. As the chart shows, our last big swing to about 771,000 license renewals will happen in fiscal year 2019, and in fiscal year 2020, our annual renewal volume will fall to approximately 717,000 and continue at a much more even pace. The average annual renewal volume will fall from about 896,000 per year to about 734,000 per year. And the difference between high and low annual renewal volumes will fall from about 10% to a more sustainable volume of about 3%. As we reach fiscal year 2020, this reduction and leveling of annual renewal volumes will return a benefit to the state through more efficient resource management and better customer service. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Washington's transition from 5-year driver licenses to licenses with 6-year terms. To learn more about driver license services, please visit the Washington Department of Licensing at dol.wa.gov.